We indie gamers are a pretty multifaceted bunch that pride ourselves on being able to enjoy all manner of video games, whether that be high-octane FPS shooters, mind-bending puzzlers, or true-to-life simulators. We tend to blend in like a chameleon to our surroundings. However, there is an even more niche brand of indie gamers that consider themselves cozy gamers. Those that seek out exclusively wholesome and relaxing titles, often boasting cute animals, vibrant shapes and colours, and relaxing addictive gameplay. Well, one of the leading subgenres within the cozy gaming community is the farming simulator. Made famous by Harvest Moon and arguably perfected by Stardew Valley, this subgenre has blossomed to the point that every digital market is bursting at the seams, with games allowing you to plant crops, romance the townsfolk, and generally just chill out. But this does create a dilemma. Which of these farming sims are worth your time, and which are just trying to cash in on a trend within the industry? Well, worry not, as we have a list of the best options out there, so without further delay, here is indie game culture's best farming simulator games to play in 2023. In at number 1 we have Harvest Moon. We begin with a game that in this day and age, living under the name Story of Seasons, we cannot call an indie game at all. But without this one could argue that there would be no such thing as a farming simulator genre at all, so we feel it's only right to tip our hat to the Harvest Moon series at the top of this list. Harvest Moon was a title that established the format for what all farming simulators use as a blueprint for success today. The game would have you start with an empty farm in disrepute and have you work tirelessly to turn it into a thriving business, all the while getting to know the townsfolk and moulding a life for yourself in this new town. While Story of Seasons isn't doing anything all that interesting within the subgenre anymore, the older Harvest Moon titles still offer some of the richest farming sim gameplay you're likely to find, so we would urge you to acknowledge your roots before you dive into the rest of the games on this list. In at number 2 we have Stardew Valley. Harvest Moon was undoubtedly the grandfather of this genre, but Stardew Valley was the plucky new kid on the block that took the dated formula and tweaked it ever slightly to create what is still the undisputed best farming simulator of all time, despite countless others trying to jump on the bandwagon to outdo Eric Baron's masterpiece. Part of the reason why no one has been able to come close to dethroning Stardew Valley as the king or queen of farming sims is because Eric Baron continues to provide large-scale free updates to the game, even to this day with a 1.6 update currently in the works. Stardew Valley offers accessible gameplay variety, mountains of content, a relatable and interesting batch of characters, timeless 16-bit visuals, a fantastic chiptune score, and that only really scratches the surface of why this game is so special. While every other game yet to come on this list has its own quirks and draws, Stardew Valley remains the standout farming sim approaching a decade after its initial release, making this a completely unmissable farming sim for fans of the genre if you haven't played this one yet. In at number 3 we have Coral Island. There are a lot of folks out there who are looking for games within the subgenre to do something outlandish and different to outdo Stardew Valley. However, there are plenty of folks who are quite happy to see the Stardew Valley blueprint taken and slightly reworked to offer a fresh but familiar adventure. And that's exactly what you'll get from Coral Island, a farming simulator clearly inspired by Eric Baron's Farming Sim Masterclass, which is still in early access but offers so much for players already. The game offers farming, fishing, romance, dungeon crawling, and basically all the trappings of a farming sim that you would expect. However, there are some cool tropical additions like deep sea diving and island community projects, plus the game both graphically and based on its plethora of clothing and furniture options gives us real Animal Crossing vibes if that's your thing. It is still a little rough around the edges as bugs persist, and the gameplay is limited in some areas as they develop the game, but all in all, this is a great farming sim to jump in, even at this moment in time. In at number 4 we have Fae Farm. Plenty of games on this list have embraced the small rural town setting and leaned into vibrant, colourful art styles. However, if you're looking for a farming sim that swaps out the humdrum life of a farmer for one filled with pixies, fairies, magic and mystery, then Fae Farm should be right at the top of your wish list. The world of Azoria is one where magic is imbued into everything that you do, meaning you'll need to care for mystical creatures, use potions and spells to tend your farm, and delve into the mines to find enchanted treasures. and there might even be a little bit of magic in there when you develop close bonds with the townsfolk. From a gameplay perspective, Fae Farm is much more streamlined and dynamic as a farming sim with no quality checks, friendship meters, or other more admin-based tasks, making it a much more calm and relaxing experience than some of the other farming sims that ramp up to become complex, automation-heavy affairs. Plus there's a jump button, which seems like no big deal, but believe us, it makes such a difference. The story and characters are a little weak, and the co-op will force you to make a whole new character, but when all is said and done, this is a very eye-catching and worthwhile farming sim to jump into. In at number 5 we have Moonstone Island. I've always been a big fan of card-based indies like Inscription and Slay the Spire, and equally I have a lot of time for creature tamers like Pokemon and cassette beasts. Well, if you took these two subgenres and then mushed them together into a farming sim, what you would have done is created a cute and cuddly Frankenstein's monster called Moonstone Island. Moonstone Island as a farming sim really doesn't push the boat out, as it's your typical grow crops, tend crops, sell crops, pixelated adventure. However, the real selling point of this game is that you can use said crops to tame creatures in the wild who will battle in your stead via card-based encounters, which sounds a little out of left field, but works wonderfully in practice. Not only that, but the game has 100 separate islands to explore, lots of people to meet, plenty of intriguing dungeons, and a surprisingly well written narrative. I would stick my neck out here and say that Moonstone Island is probably the closest anyone has come to rivaling Stardew Valley for the community's attention, and for that reason alone, this one really does deserve your time. In at number 6 we have Sunhaven. If you're looking for a farming sim that tries to align itself more with the fantasy RPG crowd, then you might want to take a look at the successful Kickstarter project, Sunhaven. This title is a visually impressive farming sim with a vast world, characters who boil down to more than just exaggerated stereotypes, and a gameplay loop that will have you engage with magical spells, combat, RPG skill trees, and up to 8 player co-op if you have a big entourage. Sunhaven caters to those who simply want to farm crops, keep animals and romance the locals, but equally it also has more complex RPG gameplay with dungeons and boss battles if that's your bag, making this a very versatile and worthwhile sim to play. We will concede that it's a bit of a slow burn, but once you get going, you'll struggle to pull yourself away from this one, we promise. In at number 7 we have Dave the Diver. Now we move on to a game that really stretches the criteria of what we would label a farming simulator, but seeing as farming crops does make up a small portion of Dave the Diver's gameplay, we've decided to make an allowance on this one. Dave the Diver, the title that took the indie and mainstream gaming community by storm this year, is a game that primarily sees you manage a sushi restaurant. By day you'll head out to sea and dive to find tasty treats worth serving to your customers, then by night you'll head to shore and manage the restaurant's dinner service. It's a resource management game that captures the essence of what a farming sim is, but then proceeds to flip the script by adding a surreal level of variety to the gameplay with mini games aplenty and a core gameplay loop that really feels unlike anything we've witnessed before. There really isn't a dull moment in Dave the Diver as the game continues to switch things up and keep things lively from one day to the next. It might not float the boat of farming sim purists, but for those in search of something truly unique, Dave the Diver is probably the best game that you'll play in this category all year. In at number 8 we have Dinkum. I have to fight every urge to make a cringy Australian joke as I introduce Dinkum, a farming sim title that has you start from nothing in the Australian outback and work to create a bustling bush town. This is the title that allows you to play with up to 3 other players as you work to create a settlement with enough amenities, attractions and luxuries to attract visitors who may even become full-time residents. You'll have to farm, fish, mine and socialise as you normally would, but the unique angle here is needing to please your residents with decorations, shops and luxury items to make this a place worth settling down in the land of Oz. There's so much to do and discover in this game, the visuals and music on offer are delightful, and there are so many fun mechanics like hunting for example that set it apart from the competition, and also the gameplay links seamlessly with the developers' love for their chosen setting. I can't contain my Australian accent any longer, so you need to try Dinkum if you're looking for a bonza time. In at number 9 we have Slime Rancher. If you're a big Stardew Valley fan, which I can only assume you are based on the topic in question here, then you may remember a rather throwaway mechanic that allowed you to gather slime eggs and keep tons of veritable slimes as pets. Well, Slime Rancher is a farming sim crossed with a first-person shooter that takes that to the nth degree. In this game, you need to seek out different slimes in the wild, capture them, farm and breed them, and use these slimes to capture and feed rarer slimes, allowing you to create new crops, slime variations, and resources that will make you filthy dirty rich. It's a great game that once again really stretches the boundaries of what a farming sim can be, as this game is part shooter, part puzzler, and part creature tamer. Yet despite this outlandish format, I can almost guarantee that anyone who loves farming sims will take to this one like a slime to a backpack. Do yourself a favour and get out to the far range today. In at number 10 we have My Time at Sandrock. We considered putting down My Time at Pacha here, but considering that My Time at Sandrock is penciled in for a full release in November of 2023, we thought that now is as good a time as any to build up some hype for this indirect sequel. My Time at Sandrock is an open world sandbox where players will arrive in a town ravaged by the Day of Calamity, and you will need to take on the arduous task of restoring this post-apocalyptic setting to its former glory. The game has a lot of resource management, upgrading, fishing, mining, and more to keep you busy, but where the game truly succeeds is in creating a vast open world to explore. There's so much to see and do, so many cool characters to meet along the way, not to mention a wild amount of mini-games to lose yourself in as well. All in all, Sandrock is like My Time at Pacha, but just bigger and better. So get prepared for the full release, or jump into early access right now. Up to you. In at number 11 we have Forager. Most farming sims really love to throw players in at the deep end, offering an overwhelmingly large amount of places to explore, mechanics to learn, and people to meet. Well, the same cannot be said of Forager, a game that has you start off on a tiny little island, and only through clever planning and problem solving through resource management will you be able to explore and expand your island as you would like. It's a wonderful rework of the subgenre that turns this typical farming sim into a top-down Zelda-like game where exploration, combat, and puzzles are just as important as crafting, farming, and customizing your world. It's another example of farming sim gameplay blended seamlessly with RPG tropes, creating a wonderfully addictive gameplay loop with gameplay that is paced expertly to keep players engaged from start to finish. I personally don't like that there's no trophy support on PlayStation, but despite that small concern, I would recommend this game to just about anybody. In at number 12 we have Roots of Pacha. Most of the time when we drop into games of this nature, we tend to be the new entity in an otherwise established social structure of a town. But what if just about everything in the world was new? I mean like Stone Age levels of new. Well, then you'd have a game like Roots of Pacha that takes us back in time and asks us to make essential discoveries, live off the land, and evolve to become more than just your basic Neanderthal. You'll need to invent new tools, discover new farming techniques, uncover the secrets of pottery, metalwork, and spirituality, and you'll need to develop strong bonds with your clan members into the bargain. It has all the fixings of a typical farming sim, but thanks to the unique setting and time period, and the vast amount of unique mini-games and cool characters, not to mention the sheer amount of customization on offer, Roots of Pacha has done enough to cement itself as a must-play game for those that love traditional farming sims, so please check this one out. In at number 13 we have Wildflowers. Here's one for both PC and mobile players out there. Wildflowers is a game that takes a leaf out of Fae Farm's playbook, offering a world that is steeped in magic and mystery, and you the player will need to guide Tara as she tries to make sense of this quaint rural town she finds herself in. The key selling point of this game is that the title has a rich narrative and fully fleshed out voice acting throughout, which allows you to engage with the cast of characters more than a lot of titles on this list, not to mention your own protagonist. The narrative on offer is the star of the show, but there are also wonderfully implemented farming, animal tending, potion crafting, spell casting, and cooking mechanics on show here, making this an essential sim to play at home or play on the go. In at number 14 we have Everdream Valley. Pretty much single-handedly thanks to Stardew Valley, every farming sim that has come after has needed to be a farming simulator plus something else to catch the eye of players. However, Everdream Valley is an example of a game that keeps it simple, offering a much purer farming adventure that really leans into animal care and harmonising the different aspects of your farm to create an animal paradise. You'll have over 25 different animal species to care for on the farm, alongside crops and maintenance, but the real magic occurs when you hit the hay, as through the power of magic, you'll be able to control all of your critters and play fun mini games to help enhance the farm when you rise bright and early the next morning. The game does scale back on variety in favour of farming mechanic depth, which won't appease everyone, but if you have been craving a more focused farming adventure, then Everdream Valley is a great option. In at number 15 we have One Lonely Outpost. If you're a regular reader of indie game culture, you'll know we didn't exactly give this one a glowing review when it entered early access earlier this year, but one thing we'll say about One Lonely Outpost is that it does have some potential. One Lonely Outpost sees you take off to a far planet where you will need to terraform, search for signs of life, and create a colony fitting for all those back home to embark on when the time comes. The game has very striking visuals and a lovely soundtrack, not to mention a lot of cool space-based farming mechanics that initially are a blast to play around with. However, at the time of writing, the gameplay is a little limited and linear, making this one a game you might have to temper your expectations for, as it's far from the finished article at this time in early access. That being said, we have every faith that this game can take the foundation they've laid and build upon it to create something quite special. It already has a stellar storyline, but it needs work on creating that addictive gameplay loop to accompany it. If you can't wait and you want to see for yourself, you can support the devs and join on early access, but at the very least, this is one you should definitely keep your eye on. In at number 16 we have Spiritfarer. With a tagline that reads, "A cozy management sim about dying," you can immediately see why Spiritfarer nestles nicely into this list of cozy hits. Right off the bat, we have to say that farming is a very small part of the Spiritfarer experience, which primarily sees you explore new lands, upgrade your ship, collect resources, and look after the residents of your houseboat as you ultimately send them into the afterlife when the time is right. The lack of urgency and the relaxing gameplay make this one a joy to experience, and gameplay is so varied that you always feel like there's something to do, but equally nothing that you're missing out on by focusing on one thing either. However, the biggest selling point of this game is the writing, as the characters you meet and the individual tales they tell will leave you on the floor like a blubbering fool, but in the most beautiful and wholesome way possible. Spiritfarer could be a bit of a leap for rigid farming sim players, but I urge you to take that leap, as this is one of the best indie gaming experiences you can ever play. In at number 17 we have Pacha. While Pacha is a game that wasn't all that well received, mainly due to poor UI implementation, if you can look past these flaws, Pacha offers a chill and serene adventure that delivers a rather important message about military veterans and the need for aftercare when discharged from their posts. Pacha is a game that focuses on downtime, not aiming to overload players with quests or daily tasks to complete. Instead, it offers just enough to keep you busy, but ultimately gives the player enough time to just sit there and watch the day go by, enjoy the serene sounds of the wilderness, and if there's time for a little bit of exploring, then great. Basically, the world is your oyster, but equally doing nothing feels just as rewarding. It's not a perfect game by any means, but a flawed gem well worth checking out. In at number 18 we have Stardew Valley. If you were a fan of the previous entry Forager, then you will probably really like what Stardew Valley has to offer. It's a game that uses an island living approach where you work to create an expansive and fully fleshed out home island while also exploring the archipelago around you to find new cool shops, resources and items. The title is much less Zelda-esque, as there's no combat or fail states to speak of. This means this is much more calm and serene when compared to Forager, where discovery and resource management reign supreme. Plus, you can get fancy hats and cute creatures to follow you around, which is a welcome bonus in any game if you ask me. So for a Forager style adventure without any stress or challenge whatsoever, you might want to play Stardew Valley. In at number 19 we have Paleo Pines. Our penultimate entry is a game that I have a personal link to, as the developers are from my home country of Northern Ireland, a little country where not many games of note are made, but Paleo Pines aims to change that, offering a farming sim where cute animals are swapped out for cute and colourful prehistoric beasts. The game allows you to tame and take care of your dino pals, and in return, they will serve as your faithful steeds that will ferry you around the island, allowing you to explore every nook and cranny of this enchanting world. Your dinos will play a key role in just about every aspect of this game, and with their help, you'll be able to create a beautiful ranch and settle in nicely as a key member of the local community. So for all you paleo heads out there, this one is a must play. And in at number 20 we have Core Keeper. Lastly, we have Core Keeper, a game that takes the core gameplay of Stardew Valley, mixes it together with Terraria, and in turn creates a masterful dungeon crawler adventure that is perfect to play with friends. Starting underground with next to nothing, players will need to create a makeshift base and work to create tools, machines and resources that will allow them to delve deeper into the underground network, uncovering the mysteries all around you. Sure, there is a main plot that will see you uncover the secrets of the cores, but due to continued updates from the devs and the expansive sandbox nature of the world you inhabit, the game never truly ends, offering an infinite and addictive experience well worth getting acquainted with. It is a game that pulls no punches and will ask you to become pretty adept at planning ahead, managing resources carefully, and of course you'll need to be pretty handy in a fight too, but all the while this game maintains its cozy status with aplomb. So if mining was your favourite aspect of Stardew Valley, then Core Keeper is a great one to try next. So there you have it guys, indie game culture's 20 farming sims that you need to try next. As you can see, there are so many incredible fully released farming sim games to play right now, as well as a number of early access projects that are already worth hopping into. The farming sim genre may be a divisive one within the indie community, but if games of this quality keep getting pushed out to market, I think we will soon see the Stardew Valley clone tag become a thing of the past, as other farming sims begin to cut their own piece of the pie and make a name for themselves in the industry. We hope this list has gave you some ideas of where you'll be planting your next seeds, and as always, thanks for tuning in to Indie Game Culture, and I'll see you next time.